Disparities in the prison population cause a lack of representation for some districts.
Prison gerrymandering. I don't know if you are familiar with it.
My name is Danielle Lang. I'm the Senior Director for the Voting Rights Project at Campaign Legal Center, which is a nonpartisan nonprofit here in Washington, D.C.
Prison gerrymandering occurs when an inmate is counted as a resident of the community where his or her facility is located and not the community of their home address. Every 10 years, that information is then used to draw new legislative districts, depriving vulnerable minority communities from fair representation through the state's electoral maps.
We're counting people in prisons based on where they are imprisoned rather than where they normally live. And what that results in is kind of what I was just describing, that in practical purposes, you have malapportionment. You have people who have really outsized political power in some districts and not enough power in other districts. And that's because people in prisons ordinarily cannot vote, and they're normally not from the communities where they are imprisoned.
Let's not forget that in the US, black and brown Americans make up a disproportionate number of prisoners. In 2019, 56% of the United States' prison population was black or Latino, despite these groups making up only 32% of the overall population of America.
It's undeniable that our criminal justice system has an outsized impact on people of color in this country. And so people of color are going to be overrepresented in prisons. And that means that those are the people who are overrepresented in the harms of prison-based gerrymandering. It's their communities that are losing representation when those folks are counted away from their home communities.
They count inmates where they are imprisoned instead of counting them where it is that they will return to. So their family members that are in Dallas, Texas, or Houston, or wherever, their family members, when they need something, they call us, even if it's relating to that inmate. But somehow rural Texas is getting better roads than they probably deserve because they're counting those inmates that are not driving on those roads. They're counting those inmates that are not using their hospitals. They're counting those inmates whose children are not attending their schools because of prison gerrymandering. So again, Republicans are really good about using black and brown bodies, because I can also tell you that the numbers are clear that we have a black and brown incarceration issue, not just in Texas, but in this country.
A white rural town can have a prison filled with black and brown people. They can then legally bolster their own electoral power, saying, we've got all these residents, but those residents can't vote. These white rural towns are basically inflating their own power and influence by using the presence of non-voting black men behind bars.
Prison-based gerrymandering can dovetail with, say, partisan gerrymandering, because if you're an election official trying to draw the districts to your advantage, you have a lot more wiggle room, say, because you have these groups of people that are kind of counted in the wrong place. And we have seen a lot of improvement on this issue in recent years, for what it's worth.
I urge the commission to end the unjust practice of treating incarcerated individuals as residents of places where they are incarcerated, as opposed to counting them to where they lived prior to incarceration and where they are likely to return after incarceration.
The biggest issue with prison gerrymandering is attention, right? I think that it's intuitive to folks once they understand the issue to know that we should count people where they're from, where they're going to return to, that obviously their representation really should belong to their home communities, because they're going to go back to those communities over the course of, most of them will go back over the course of, a decade. People who are passionate about this issue have a lot of sway, I think, by just raising attention to the issue, letting their representatives know that they care about it, educating their representatives about the issue, and asking them to make change.
20 statewide organizations, including the good government group Common Cause, sent a letter to Rhode Island's Redistricting Commission calling on them to put an end to what they call prison-based gerrymandering. Common Cause's John Marion saying in a statement, quote, "Prison gerrymandering does nothing but strip away Rhode Islanders' constitutional right to fair representation in our government. State leaders have the opportunity to correct an unjust practice that disproportionately impacts people of color right now, before we draw new district maps in place for the next decade."
It makes no sense that we ignore the societal shift and continue to treat incarcerated persons as residents of places where they're incarcerated, where they have no daily or long-term relationships in the community, and they have no plans to remain there.
Everybody wants to have a say in our democracy, and that counts for people who intersect with the criminal justice system too. And we have common sense solutions to make sure that everybody gets to count the same in this country, and we should implement them.